Good morning, everyone. You guys all ready? So we're here to talk about the crime that just occurred that everyone's talking about, and I just want to say that it's truly a horrifying and it's beyond comprehension what occurred here. The young man's unimaginable suffering over the course of 2 decades is just a reminder of the darkness that does exist in our world. Our hearts and our prayers go out to him. We're committed to supporting him in every way possible as he begins to heal from this unimaginable trauma that he suffered. I do want to this morning, though, acknowledge and extend my deepest gratitude to Chief Fred Spagnola and the Waterbury Police Department for their unwavering dedication and relentless investigative efforts, as well as to Waterbury State's Attorney Maureen Platt and her office for their vital role in this case. Their tireless work has led to an arrest, but it's crucial to remember that this investigation is far from over, and there's a lot more work to be done. Unanswered questions remain, and we're going to continue to ensure that justice is fully served as more details emerge in the coming months. In the meantime, I would ask that the press and the community respect the young man's privacy as he begins to negotiate what will no doubt be a difficult and painful journey towards recovery. So please keep him in your thoughts and in your prayers. And with that, I will turn it over to Fred Spagnola, our Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. As you all know, on February 17th, around 8:40 p.m., Waterbury Police responded to 2 Blake Street on a report of a fire. Officers and fire investigators immediately realized there were some grave concerns about some of the conditions in the house. There were 2 occupants of the house, one being Kimberly Sullivan, the stepmother of the male victim. Officers and fire investigators quickly realized that there was a room in the house that appeared to have locks on it from the exterior portion of the house. They began to speak to the male victim, who disclosed that he was being held captive in the house for an extended period of time, approximately 20 years. The investigation began from that point. We worked closely with the State's Attorney's Office, Maureen Platt, as well as Assistant State's Attorney Don Thurkelson, because frankly, what was being reported was unfathomable to us at that point in time. Through those investigative meetings and through search warrants, we were able to seize physical evidence and conduct interviews and dig up some more information that corroborated the victim's story. This investigation, as the mayor points out, continues. Is very open and very active. We were able to obtain arrest warrants for Kimberly Sullivan. She was arrested yesterday. She was arraigned in Waterbury Superior Court. She's currently being held on a $300,000 bond. At this point, I'll open the floor up for any questions.
The biological father, we've learned that he recently left the home, and her lawyer is saying that we need to look deeper into his part in all of this. When it comes to the investigation, is he being held accountable at all?
The biological father is deceased and died in January of 2024. Prior to his death, he was wheelchair bound from some medical conditions.
Okay. Also, it was reported to the school system that this boy at the time, now 32-year-old man, he was starving, he was asking other kids for lunch. I mean, is this a failure on the school system that this matter was not taken more seriously?
So we're doing some background investigation. There are 2 incidents that we had within our computer system of dealing with that address and with the family back in 2005. One was a request from DCF to do a welfare check at the location because children that the victim was familiar with hadn't seen him and they were concerned about him. Officers went to the house. The house was clean. It was lived in. They spoke to the victim at that point in time, and there were no cause for any alarm or any conditions that existed that would have led officers to believe anything other than a normal childhood and a normal family existence was occurring. That was reported back to DCF, and that was the last that we were involved in that particular investigation. We were called back to the house in the latter part of April by the family who wanted to file a harassment complaint against members of the school district, saying that they were continuously reporting them to DCF and felt that they were trying to get the family in trouble and have the family investigated. We have no further information about where that went, other than there was no proof provided by the family that there was any type of harassment that was occurring. You know, as far as the school district's concerned, we are looking at those records now. We're working with DCF to look at records that they may have from previous investigations, and that's part of the ongoing investigation.
But Chief, if people were filing complaints, even if it was with DCF, continuously, as the family, I guess, alleged, you know, was there more contact from DCF, and do you know anything about how that would have gone?
So the only contact we had was back in April of 2005 when we were notified to conduct that welfare check. And again, we're looking for those records now to determine where that investigation may have gone, but there was no further reported information to the Waterbury Police Department.
So when you had an officer go out there that first time, you're saying everything looked normal, it looked like a normal childhood, but the school district, the principal told us that the child looked really small, malnourished, was drinking from a urinal at school, was taking kids' food. So, I mean, with all that information, the officer still concluded that the child was safe at that time? Well,
the officer didn't have that information. So this former principal is now disclosing all this information, and I believe in the news clips I've reviewed that he was making calls to DCF and other agencies. Waterbury Police were never notified by this particular principal about those conditions. So this is all information that is coming out now as this case unfolds.
I believe he said he called police, but you have no record of that.
Well, I believe he's wrong if that's what he said, because there is no record of it.
Can you talk about, you said that there was some evidence that corroborates the story of the gentleman. Can you talk any more about what that is, or how do you go about corroborating a story like this that's so extraordinary?
Right. So there's some physical evidence that was seized from the house that does corroborate the fact that that room did have exterior locks on it, and a number of different styles of exterior locks, as was explained during an interview with the victim. Throughout the years, it appeared that the locks increased in security levels as time progressed, and obviously he became older and maybe a little bit stronger. So that's certainly one component, and then there's other components of the fire investigation that are part of the evidence package as well.
And I'm sorry if you said this, but were these the only two individuals living in that home?
Yes, there were two siblings that were in and out of the home, but they have since moved out.
So say DCF had all this information, the principal's saying, they don't share any of that with police?
You're going to have to talk to DCF about what their protocol is on when they share information with police. DCF does work closely with police departments and provides a lot of information to police departments in a number of different ways. I don't know what their protocol is on when they share that information, so that would be something that they would have to respond to.
Chief, how's the victim doing now? Obviously some serious conditions. We read about the PTSD and depression.
Right.
Can you share about how the victim's faring?
Right, so obviously he's got a lot of mental health issues that he has to deal with at this point in time. There are a lot of physical conditions that he's working on as well. I mean, here's an adult that was 5'9" and 68 pounds. You know, there's some apparent orthopedic issues. You know, the room was very small. You know, honestly, you know, when I read about it and talk to the investigators and overlook the interviews, it was worse than the conditions of a jail cell. So there's a lot of physical therapy that he'll have to go through. There's a lot of healing that he'll have to go through mentally. And you know, I can tell you this: our investigators, and I'll specifically point out Detective Steve Brownell and Detective John Paish, who were the lead investigators in this particular case, but all the investigators, the entire Criminal Investigations Bureau, has been very supportive of the victim. You know, they took a collection up and bought him some items to try to make life more comfortable, some clothing and some books and some things to kind of get him along the way as he goes through this process. But, you know, our plan is to continue to support him. He's going to need a lot of support as he travels through this and tries to figure out how to navigate what has occurred and what the future holds for him.
Chief, I think a lot of people are wondering, like, where are his other relatives? Did no one else see this man for 20 years that they were able to, you know, say anything, report anything to police? Like, person in his life? Did he have, you said he had 2 siblings. Where is everyone else? Where are all the relatives?
So the backdrop is being formed, and this is again why the investigation continues. It appears that it was a very controlling situation going on regarding the victim's condition, his whereabouts, his connection with other family members, other people in the community, other friends. Information was very guarded on what was released and when he was able to see other members of the family and other members of the community. And I think that, I know, from information provided in the interviews that there was a level of fear on retaliation on what would occur if information was released or help was provided to the victim by family members.
Were there any injuries as a result of the fire?
Smoke inhalation, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if there's any long-term effects from what occurred at the fire, but on scene, he was treated for smoke inhalation.
How did he get out of the house? Did he get out of the house on his own, or did firefighters have to rescue him?
He was assisted out of the house.
Will you be identifying him at any point?
That's a great question. Not at this time, and I don't really know when, if at all.
Where's the mother?
The mother has not been involved in the victim's life.
From the beginning?
Pretty much. From all accounts, around 2 years old.
The suspect is denying all the allegations through her attorney. Has she said anything about how her stepson would be 68 pounds, for example?
Kimberly Sullivan refused to talk to us immediately.
Do you have a picture of the door lock that was taken as evidence?
I'm 100% certain that we do. I'd have to confer with the state's attorney if we were going to release any information like that at this time.
Does Kimberly Sullivan, have any prior criminal convictions?
No prior criminal history with us here at the police department.
Neighbors were telling us that if he had knocked on the window, they would have helped him. Were there any other attempts besides this fire to try to give him some help?
No, again, I don't. From what we've put together so far, no, and that's because of a fear of retaliation. I mean, he in his room to relieve himself, right, had this elaborate mechanism that he created where he would urinate in a bottle, and he had straws connected to the bottom of the bottle, and he found a hole in the storm window frame that he was able to put these straws through, and he did that because the storm window itself wouldn't open up, and he was fearful that if he broke that storm window or tried to open it up, that there would be some retaliation. So, I'm certainly not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but there's a lot of nuances to people that are victims and held captive, and I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done with this particular gentleman in that area to really determine all the impact and all the effects that this long-term condition has really brought on him.
I take it you haven't had a case like this before.
33 years of law enforcement. This is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed. Right? I mean, honestly, when we first started talking about it, we really couldn't believe it. It took a lot of convincing amongst ourselves to just really accept what was going on, and it's really hard to talk about still. I mean, it's shuddering to think that someone would treat any person, let alone a family member or someone that was entrusted as a guardian or a parental figure in this way.
Mayor, just can you also share your personal thoughts and reaction, just knowing something so disturbing happened in this community?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it's just unfathomable that anyone could treat someone this way, as the chief said, especially within the relationship that they had. It's devastating, and we're going to make sure that the systems are working into the future to see what might have happened 20 years ago when this may have been reported. But at this point, it appears that this was just really an isolated sense, and that they were locked in there all by themselves. And through fear and intimidation, she was able to keep it secret all that time.
So
So when you're talking about the future and other children, other families out there, I mean, if there's welfare checks, you know, and the kids are told to lie about being fed, I mean, what happens?
Well,
Like, are they going to stay in these situations like he did, or?
Well, there's limits, I would think, to what you can do. We can send people out to check and look at it. I don't know what it looked like when the officer walked into the house in 2005. What the child looked like. You know, that's 2 decades ago, and so you know, it's hard. We can send people out. We can do the checks. We can make sure that teachers, you know, and administrators are looking out for children, notice some of the telltale signs. I think we've come a long way as well in 20 years over looking for these things and being able to report them. Requirements of what has to go to DCF have changed over that time. So I think we can continue to do it. But can I tell you that it will never happen again? I don't think anyone can tell you that, because there's a lot of things that go into this that, you know, can help keep it secret.
Where was she arrested in Southington?
I don't know. I could get you that information. I'm not sure exactly where she was arrested in Southington. You know, and it's important, you know, to piggyback on the mayor's response to your inquiry. You know, if you see something, say something. I know it's a cliche, and we talk about it all the time. But all the great work that the media and press is doing now on this particular case, in talking to relatives and neighbors and school district people. I know some have said that they've made calls, but some have said they haven't, right? So if things are peculiar, it's important to notify the police department. We will certainly look into that information and take the appropriate action. And it may take more than one time, depending on the circumstances we find when we get there. And we know that, you know, through history and through our work with servicing agencies, the victims of domestic violence especially are oftentimes reluctant to come forward. And, you know, we encourage people that are victims of domestic violence to find the fortitude to come forward, and we're here to help. We really are.
In this situation, though, it seems like, according to the police report, that his life became worse because someone reported it. And after that second DCF visit, the mother pulled him from school.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
But you still would encourage people to?
I would. I mean, because you're not going to break the cycle any other way. I mean, you know, unfortunately in this case, it seems as if an 11-year-old was taken extreme advantage of, and at that time, you know, it's very tragic that occurred, but it will never stop, right? And this gentleman suffered for 2 decades because of that. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback, but I think it's really important to never lose hope and to continue to report incidents, especially if you're a victim of neglect or a crime.
Was he in the room all the time? Because there were some reports that he was in the backyard doing chores.
He would be released from the room anywhere from 15 minutes to a couple of hours every day. You know, there were some indication during the interview that although his dad didn't do him too many favors when the stepmother wasn't around, he would stay out of the room a little bit longer.
Any motive, like any indication as to why she would do something like this?
As I said, she refused to speak to us immediately, and you know, I hope the investigation reveals more information on the reasoning and the motive on why.
Did he say anything in the interview?
No, not to really point to that, other than, you know, to describe the agony that he went through and the lack of understanding on why.
Will the sisters face charges at any point?
No, in speaking to the state's attorney's office, we don't believe so at this time. I mean, this is a very open case, very active case. It appears that so far the evidence collected and the information received reveals that Kimberly Sullivan is the sole person responsible, and we're able to charge at this point in time.
Have the daughters spoken? The sister spoken at all? I don't recall them in the room.
I'm sorry?
I don't recall seeing the sisters, half-sisters' names or being interviewed in the warrant. Were there attempts made to reach out to them?
Well, again, we're attempting to talk to everybody in this case, yeah.
But they said no, they're not going to comment?
At this point in time, there's been no statements taken from them. Anything else?
Can you just talk about the next steps in the court proceedings?
Yeah, so, obviously she's held on a $300,000 bond. There is a possibility that she may bond out. She'd have to do that at court. Mark, are we aware of her next court date? Do you have that date? 26th. 26th of March? March 26th, she will appear again.